Welcome, everyone, to the Screamcast. I am your host, Sean DeRager, doing kind of a solo run today on the podcast / YouTube cast, video cast, I don't know. And I want to start doing these kind of interview things every now and then when I find someone interesting to talk to. And this week, there's a game called Mixtape Massacre, and they had their Kickstarter for their director's cut. So I said, what the hell? We need to bring in the creators of Mixtape Massacre. So joining me, Freddie Carlini. Thank you for joining me on the Screamcast today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I am a huge fan of the game. So first of all, I gotta say, holy shit! Thank you for creating this game, because it's been a really fun time with my kids. They're little, horror fans in training. I'm not trying to indoctrinate them into the, cult of horror, but it just kind of happens, So when I saw this game, I saw an ad or something like that, and I was like, holy shit, like this is like a game right up my alley, and got it. I bought everything. I bought Mixtape Massacre. I bought Escape from Tall Oaks, as many expansion packs as I could, and we have had a blast with Mixtape Massacre.
Well, that's great. That's what we want to hear. We want to hear that people are having fun with it.
Now, Escape from Tall Oaks, which is kind of it's a little more involved, a little more in depth of a game, more kind of role playing, I guess, would feel more. It feels a little more role playing. That was the kids, the youngest one. He was like, "This is too much." So we stick to only Mixtape Massacre right now. So monsters killing people, teenagers. They're all about that.
That's good to hear.
So I wanted to kind of we have the director's cut coming out. We'll talk about the Kickstarter in a second. And congratulations for fully funded in 3 hours.
Yeah, in under 3 hours. It was pretty awesome. It's awesome to see the fans really just like come out and really hungry for something new all the time. It's really inspiring.
Yeah. So before we talk about the director's cut, let's talk about the brief history of what started this whole journey for you with Mixtape Massacre. I'm surprised it hasn't been done before, this type of game. But
that's kind of where it came from. Was we were kind of shocked that it didn't exist. It was one of these things where I was at a game night with my girlfriend and some friends. I had recently gotten sober, from alcohol. So I was going to a lot of like game nights with friends and like playing board games and just like chips and sodas and stuff like that. And the funny thing I kept running into at game nights was, and it's something I didn't personally experience because I play a lot of games. So I tend to hang out with people who like to play like really complicated and crazy games. But when you're amongst like friends who are just looking for something casual, the biggest thing I kept noticing was it was really hard to get any game started. It was, this is taking an hour and a half just to learn how to play. This seems really in depth. I don't want to get too into this. Like, I just want something we can throw down on the table. And I'm looking through the stack of games, and there was like, when it comes to like horror board games, like you have like your zombie games and you have like Arkham Horror, but you don't have anything close to like the ideas of like slashers and 80s and things like that, that's something I grew up on. My father, like, I think when I was 5, I started watching movies with him, and I got addicted very fast, and I wanted to see everything. And I used to go to VHS stores with him and just pick up everything that they had because I loved the covers. So, not seeing that was kind of like the first light bulb. I was like, how the hell does this not exist? And then in doing my research with my business partner, Matt, and our employee, MJ, who are the other creators of the game, we didn't find, except there was a game called Camp Grizzly, which was a little more in depth, but it was more just from like the camper's perspective. You're trying to survive basically against kind of like your Jason style archetype. There's a killer in the woods. You guys need to escape. And we were just like, well, that's not exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something where like you're in the shoes of a 80s style killer and you're raiding a town. And so I, for about 2 months, spent some time in my like house. Like, I think it was over like the holidays. And I was like, I'm going to put together a board and some cards. And I think like the name Mixtape Massacre like came to me because I was listening to a lot of old '80s music while I
Okay.
was doing it, and it was kind of giving me into like fun vibes. And I was like, well, what if it was a little comical and a little horror, and we like mix those two things together? I put together a board. I put together a couple concepts. I had the name. I like immediately bought the name online and like set it up because anytime I have like a name that comes to me, I'm like, I have to buy that now.
I do the same
But
thing. I got so many unused registered names.
so I immediately did that, and then I brought it into the studio. I remember presenting it first just to Matt, and I said, I have an idea. We've talked about doing a Kickstarter for things for so long. I have a cool idea for a board game. And he and MJ were like, all right, well, let's do a lunch. We'll play what you have and see what we can do with it. And so we did a lunch, played through it. They got the jokes. They got the gist of it. They were like, okay, we're in. And like MJ and I started developing. Matt started coming up with like crazy concepts of like, hey, what if we made like the player stations like knives and like, what if everything was tapes and tapes and tapes and like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think originally I'd proposed it as we would be in a house and like you'd be raiding a house. And then Matt was like, well, why don't we do a town? And then I was like, well, why don't we call it Tall Oaks? And like, it was just like a snowball. And
Yeah.
MJ kept coming up with these funny references and like songs to put into a playlist. And like, it just evolved and spun and spun. And so that was kind of the start of Mixtape Massacre. And then kind of the kicker was, how do you get this like seen by anyone? So it's just one of these things of like building social media. MJ was like hitting Twitter like crazy, hitting Instagram like crazy, just trying to get it like noticed. And then we were like, okay, we've got a decent following. People are interested. Let's put it out there and see what happens. And to be honest, like the first Kickstarter for the game barely made it. Like it just got funded. We were able to produce a few copies, or not a few. We produced a lot because it was for the people who backed it. But we produced a low number of copies, got it in, gave it to our backers, and then had a few left, sold out immediately. A few people from press and a few people from like in the industry who were like into movies got their hands on it. And I think it just started spreading like, well, where can we get this? Where can we get this? And we were running out of copies. And Matt and I were kind of like looking at the numbers and we're like, well, what if we just did a big run of them and had them available and we could see what happens from there. And we did that, and it kind of just snowballed. We started doing expansions. We started doing more ideas, adding more mechanics to it, making it more hard, making it more fun. Tons of jokes and references to things we love. And it's been 6 years now.
It's ridiculous, and I'm shocked that I just found it just this last year. I think it was just because, like we were home more. Trying to find out more things to do with the kids, and it's just kind of like we were looking for more games, and and like you said, like everything was almost way too involved, almost too much, and I needed something, especially with the kids. And it's funny I'm playing with my kids because I mean the Mixtape Massacre. If you're a responsible parent, you look through the cards before they pull some. I set aside a few, not many. But
Sure.
if they're kids that kind of are savvy to what horror is, what a slasher is, even if they've never seen one, it's a game you can just kind of put down and play and have a blast. And we just had a blast playing it.
That's awesome.
So I'm going to show for our viewers, as we're talking about this, but I haven't shown them like what the game looks like. So here's the cover of the game, everybody. It says 17. Does it say 17 plus? That's negotiable if you're, if you're a savvy parent.
I say to people all the time because we have a lot of families who play with their kids, like tons of people play with their kids, and I say all the time, I was like, it's like R-rated movies. When I was a kid, my dad would let me come play with or come watch the movies with them. So
yeah,
kind of the same rule with this.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just barely there with some of the jokes and some of the cards, but not all the way, which is
Sure.
is pretty great. So, and I'm going to show the board. I'm going to show the, back to this, and I'm going to show I think this is the board. So here's the original Mixtape Massacre board, I believe. Yeah. So, it's just a blast. So now those of you listening to the podcast now, you're like, oh man, I wish I would have watched the YouTube. So okay, so you had Mixtape Massacre. I mean, the thing is like with well, with creative folks already, we're already like always thinking about the next thing.
Absolutely.
And same thing with the game. I feel like, I don't know if it's just the horror community. I feel like they're kind of that way too, especially with like collectibles and the expansions. And I think, I mean, every game has expansions, but T-shirts. Like, I think the artwork. I think there's something to be said about the art of the game, because you want to wear a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Who wears a T-shirt of a board game other than like Dungeons and Dragons, I guess? But
And it's funny you say that, because like when because the illustration work is all done by Matt. We kind of sit there as a team. It's kind of like the scene in Cabin in the Woods where there's like that board of characters, like archetypes behind them. That's literally how this game started. Was we just made a board. It was like, think of all the slashers, all the types. How many mass killers are there? That's like the legend. Because that's the other thing, is every character is kind of an amalgamate and collection of characters. Like, we really wanted to like tip our hats to like all the films we loved. It was like, let's put a little nod in there for like with the legend. It's like he's wearing a white mask that's kind of hockey style, but it's also just kind of plain. So it's kind of like, all right, obviously a nod to like your Jasons, obviously a nod to Michael. But there's also like the green hair, which is like a nod to Beetlejuice. There's the jacket, the whole jacket and look and getup is like the killer from Cobra. So it's like, it's all these cool little nods and stuff where we can just like, it's one of those things where it's like throw everything to a blender. We'll never ever be able to get the rights to all these characters. So instead, why not just like tip our hats and say like, obviously we love this because it's inspired by this and kind of like resembles some of these things, and get it into as many characters as possible. How many prom queens like do you see in movies, be it Carrie or be it like Prom Night and things like that, where there's killers like that? And we just kind of went down the line, and it was like, you need to have dolls. Like, there's killer dolls all the time. There's Chuckies. There's all kinds of dolls. We made Buddy have like little buck teeth and stuff like that. But so we'd sit there, select all these characters, and then Matt's like, all right, well, now we need to like come up with the look. And he'd do sketches, we'd give notes, he'd like start doing colors and things like that. And one of the things I love about Matt's illustration work is that he really has a really cool choice of color combinations. Like a lot of the colors he picks pop. And I think one of the things that sets our game apart from your everyday like horror artwork is it's got a fun comic booky, like cartoony feel to it. But then there's some parts of it that like look rough and like splattered and like, things like that. So that's kind of the fun of like putting this together. But as we built out the game, and as we put together characters, and as we put out all this stuff, we as games were selling and things like that, we kept saying like, the big thing about this is a community. Like, horror is something I've been like around since I was a kid. Like, I reading Fangoria magazines and like going to crazy like VHS stores and just grabbing every tape possible. Like, and there's tons of people like that. And for us, it was more like, Mixtape Massacre shouldn't just be a game. It should be a brand. You should be like one of those kids who's like happy to wear like a shirt with like VHS stuff all over it or knives all over it. And so we kind of were like, when we think about this stuff, let's not just make it about a game. Let's make it a little bigger than that. So to your point, it's like, a lot of the reasons like people tend to buy all of our shirts and stuff is because we don't just make them about the game. We make it like more of a world, more of a brand, and like, it's fun to wear that stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's great. I was wearing the pumpkin character, the scare. I was wearing that shirt, and I was buying some groceries or something, and the girl at the checkout counter was a horror fan, and she was like, "Oh my God!" She's like, "Where'd you get that shirt? What is this?" So I'm sitting there standing in line telling her about the game, Meanwhile, people waiting, everyone's waiting, and I'm just like telling her all about the game. So this game is really awesome. You need to go here and just Google Mixtape Massacre, you'll find it. But that shirt was like start of the conversation, and then we're talking about a board game.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a cool thing where like I think you get that with a lot of horror, like Fright Rags and Cavity Colors. They
Yeah,
make these
yeah.
these beautiful like almost collages of these films, and that's the whole thing, man. Like the horror community and the horror genre, it's just like so many fun discussions you can have about it, and I
Mhm.
think that's part of the fun of putting our game together was like how many jokes and things can we put in it where if you're a movie kid or a nerd, you're going to get the joke and
Mhm.
get what it's in reference to and kind of start having conversations
Yeah.
about that. And it's funny. That's literally what like half of the parents who buy it and like get it for them and their kids to play. They say like it's really fun because we like tell our kids about the references and tell them about the jokes. Then they want to watch the movies and
Yep.
we're like, that's great. That's like what we
Yeah.
want out of this. So like,
It's funny. We were playing, and then I've been watching Cobra Kai with the kids. They're into it. We watched all the Karate Kid stuff, and there's a Karate Kid joke on one of the cards, and they're like,
yeah.
"We get it!" They're all excited that they got the reference.
Yeah, I mean that's the fun of it is like as much as it's like fun going into the locations and taking out the survivors, sometimes there's little jokes with the survivors and
Yeah,
then it's like, oh, this is awesome, like this is
yeah,
great. So
yeah. Let's
um
let's talk about a little bit about. I'm going to bring up the pictures here again, and we'll go down and let's see here. I think the next one is all some expansions, and then Escape from Tall Oaks, which
yeah,
that's and I mentioned like Escape from Tall Oaks. Um, I mean, it's kind of the same genre, but it's or same idea, but it's flipped where you're the survivors trying to outrun the slashers. And
yeah,
what's great about this one now, this one seems like um it, a natural kind of evolution of the game. But it is more involved. It is more reminds me more of kind of like a role playing game of some of these other kind of horror games where you're collecting you have your weapons, you have you know what's great about both of them, you kind of have the like those little knives, you have these little tabs, and if you just like any game, you can take those off if you take any damage.
losing
But
health, yeah,
so but it is definitely it is more complicated, a little more complex.
for sure.
So that I save for like more of us grown up nerds playing. The older kids are into it, and then but the youngest, he's like, I don't want to play.
He's like, I just want to go in and start taking people out. Let's do this.
Yeah. So what was the evolution into? Oh, let's do a whole other game, but it can coincide with this one, and you can even put the game boards together and play them both. What's the?
Yeah. So
Oh my
so
god.
our big thing is what we said, because it's another thing I see with games is where you keep having these expansions, you keep having all this stuff, but then like it outdates something, or now you're no longer going to play this and stuff like that. One of our key things was to make sure that people are spending money on this.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure that it all works together. I want to make sure that people continually want to go back and play these things. So when we released Escape from Tall Oaks, I didn't want it to be that, well, now my old game I can't play anymore, or
Right.
I've got all these killers over here, I've got all these survivors over here. Why can't I play with them together? So we made sure that like there's a lot of thought put into you could play the old game with both boards. You can play the new game with both boards. You can put both games together and things like that. But kind of the thinking with Escape was that there were people who were just like, there's a card in the original game called the Survivor. Have you guys ever thought about like making it that like there's kids and stuff? And the funny thing is when we made the first game, we actually pulled back some of the stuff we were going to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
We even, in fact, at one point had it that the board would flip over and you'd be in the woods and you could play as the kids in the original. But it was just like, whoa, we're going to throw too much. We're getting away from our main mission of making something super easy to get into. And then as people start to like the game and get into it, we can give them more stuff to play. So, we honed it back. But then it was like, I think like 2 or 3 years went by and we were working on another game, which is actually still in the works, but we were working on another game. And then I was like, I think people would really be stoked if we finally did the Escape idea and it was you playing as the kids. And we did another thing where like, all right, let's sit down, let's kind of look at how this is going to work. And one of the nice things is that it's approachable because if you played the first game, you get some of the basic concepts of the new one.
Mm-hmm.
And then we smack some layers on top of it of like hey, you're a survivor, you're not a killer. You have to have a weapon at all times or you're
Yeah.
going to get destroyed. Like, you're a kid. Like, you're not going to stand up against these like giant monsters. Your kids working together, but also working against each other because at the end of the day, you're a bunch of kids from different cliques. So you're probably going to betray each other. So you got to solve tasks, but at the same time, one of you's got to make it to the end and escape.
Right. That's what I love
and-
about these games is you can work together, but then as it starts getting down to brass tacks, free for all, man. Last man standing.
and the trader cards and things like that. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it's kind of cool because it's also one of those things where you take a lot of the lessons of like feedback and things from friends and feedback from fans of like playing the game for so long, and that's kind of like, we put out expansions, we put out things people wanted. People always want to see more characters. I know for forever people wanted to see like a Bigfoot in the game, and it makes it. I mean, trust me. We've had characters sitting on our wall who we still haven't done where we were just like, we need this. We need something Halloweenish. Okay, let's put out the scare. We need something. We need something related to like Sasquatch. And then we were like, all right, well, let's do the myth because like this is like a thing like I've been obsessed with since I was a kid. So, but the other thing is to make it that when you're buying these expansions, it's a different tale. Like we refer to all the expansions as tales from Tall Oaks.
Right.
And it's the idea that they're different events that occur throughout the history of this town because this town is so messed up. And the things that keep occurring there are so messed up, but it's kind of like, well, underneath all this, what is going on? Why is this town messed up? And why have all the people not left? So it's just fun to like keep building the story, keep building the universe, keep adding characters. And like 6 years later, we were taking a look back at the original game. We took all this feedback from fans, and stuff like that. And it's kind of funny. We were sitting there and kind of were like, especially me, I buy Blu-rays and stuff all the time, and it's just like I own so many versions of the same film, like, and I usually do this because like. There's 5 minutes here, or there's a cut that's done this way, or there's a producer's cut for Halloween 6 and stuff like that. And I was just like, why have we not taken all this feedback and taken some of the stuff we originally wanted to do with the game and put it into the game? And that kind of led us to the director's cut.
Yes, I'm going to show off the director's cut here. Which one is it here? That's not it.
Well, that's it. That's the director's cut. That's the boss.
It is. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. There it is. Okay. I forgot I'd cropped out the bottom Kickstarter thing, so I was just so used to seeing that. So, yeah. So, oh, my God. So, the director's cut. And I was a little stressed out because I was like, what am I going to do with the old game? What am I going to do? And I was like, can I buy like pieces to make the director's cut? But this thing is such a contained thing that I'm a fan of the game, so of course I'm gonna buy the thing. Who am I kidding? So
one of the things with it is that like we knew there would be like some hesitancy, especially because we're like, well, we've been around 5 years, but some people just bought it like a year or two ago. Like, and I was like, I'm really worried about that because I can't offer an upgrade kit for this because the changes we've actually made to it are substantial. Like it. Yep. One fan actually said, they're like, so is this like your Snyder cut? And I was like, yeah, except we didn't get $70 million to do this. We like just went through and fixed all this.
Right.
But it was
someone
like,
didn't come in the middle of the game and change it while you were gone,
Exactly. It's like, we just kind of were like, all right, we're going to reset this.
It's like Ridley Scott's Kingdom of Heaven, right?
There you go. Like, or it's like one of the 4 cuts of Blade Runner. We were just like, there's all these things we wanted to do. There's things fans have been screaming for years at us. I was like, I don't want to just put out, like, a lot of times there's games that are in their 5th edition that have been out for 5 years and they're in their 5th edition, like, which tells you they just made incremental changes along the way. And I'm very big on, as a collector and everything else, I'm very big on, look, I don't want the boom stick edition of Army of Darkness. I bought this edition, like, it better be like the coolest collector set ever. So like we were like, if we're going to put this out, it has to be substantial so that one, I mean, this won't be out for a year, so people who have their current game, they're still going to be playing that for a while. But also that, like, I wanted this stuff to be something where it's like also collector like, where like when I get this, it's going to have like a collector's edition feel to it. So, Matt, MJ, and I sat down and we were like, we're going to put a slip cover on this thing. We're going to do some crazy printing to the box so it has like a nice finish and everything. So that like, just even if you're not playing it, just like, wow, look at that thing, it looks awesome. We're doing these plastic knives with screen printed textures on all of them, which is going to be really, really cool. And the coolest part is we worked with the manufacturer so that the blade of the knife actually has a bevel to it. So it's like a real knife when you hold it at first.
My God.
Yeah. So we wanted to, and the best part is that we're making this at the same, we're making it and it's costing us a little more, but we're going to be able to sell it at the same price, which is also important to us because another thing I don't like is where you go into a store and you're like, man, this game's like $120. It's like, for $120, I feel like you should be getting like multiple expansions and things like that. So we wanted to make it like, let's get this into a way where we can make these changes, but still keep the price tag that it's at because I like having it like affordable for families and stuff like that to get.
Right.
So we worked really hard to get it to that place. What we put into this is no way short of like, this is an ultimate collector's edition of the game. So for a person like you, where it's like, man, I just got this thing like 8 months ago, and now you guys are putting out another one. We wanted to make sure, like, one, the current one you have, it's playable as is. You can all the new stuff we're putting out still plays with it. But if you were to buy this is like a next level for you.
Yeah.
So
and all the old expansions still work with it. And then you have a new expansion with the scare coming out with it. So
people are going to love that.
I mean, that's just the design of that character alone. Let me see if I have a picture of it too. Cause the design, there's the new board with you can kind of see the knives. It's, I blew it up and it was a little blurrier than I wanted it to be, but, let's see if I can get these guys on here. Let's see. There we go. So we got the little collectibles there, the little figures, which are holy shit. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and that's something since the first day we launched the project, they've been screaming for. They're like, oh, man, when are you guys going to do minis for the game? And we were like, okay, we'll do minis this time. So doing our first batch.
Wow. And then, of course, the Hallows Eve there.
Yeah, this is one that's been near and dear to us for a long time because, I mean, obviously this is a horror game. So what does everyone equate the horror genre to? And it's the time of the year, Halloween. Yeah. So we were like, we need an expansion that covers the Halloween season. And we had introduced the scare through a booster pack, and people freaked out over it like that. That was like one of our biggest sellers when we put it out. But it was something where what we do with all the characters, all the bad guys, they eventually evolve. Like, I think we've had it where like Nightmare was originally like all cloaked, and now he's got like hands ripped off, and he's like put a hook on and stuff like that. So with the scare, because he's like an evil scarecrow that like is like from basically like the soil of Tall Oaks is like stained with like the evils that have been there since the time the town opened and things like that.
Of course,
he's like feeding off that evil. So we were like, well, if he's feeding off it and he's a plant, he's got to grow. So we were like, we need to make this thing huge. So this piece is huge. It has 2 stands. It's about this big. So like when he comes onto the board, people are like, holy shit. And the cool thing is like, every time we put out a new expansion, we want it to be a different adventure. We want it to be different stuff. So we threw in a bunch of stuff. There's ghosts in the game. There's masks that you can wear, and when you put them on, they give you unique abilities. There's candy corns in the game that can like actually bring the scare to you because he like feeds off like candy. Like there's all these like crazy little like elements in the game. So it's one of those things where we're like, all right, we have to have fun with the theme. It's Halloween. Let's go for. So that's the Hallows Eve expansion.
Man, oh man. I mean, there's so much, and I mean, you've already said you already have things kind of just sitting there, on the back burner, on the board. I mean, and the thing is like, like, do you feel, because you have a graphic design company, is your
Yes,
main company.
we're a multimedia company.
A
Yeah.
multimedia company. Do you ever feel like, are you ever feel like, holy shit, this isn't getting bigger. This is going to get bigger than I can handle or we can handle.
All the time.
You have those stress dreams. I mean, I do that. Like, so I have a day job. I do podcasts and I do audiobooks, and I've started to get more audiobook work. And now I'm starting to get, like, with a publisher, like, paid. And now I'm starting to get that whole, like, careful what you wish for type thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I can tell you about our company pretty quickly. Like we started off, Matt and I started our company 11 years ago. Matt and I have known each other since we were 14.
Okay.
We're best friends. We went to different schools. He went to RISD. I went to the Catholic University of America. I studied communications and multimedia, focused on film, screenwriting, stuff like that. I didn't do anything with that because when I came out of school, I just kept getting graphic design jobs and web development jobs. And that was like stuff I've known since I was a kid because my dad made me learn all that stuff. So it's just stuff I was technically good with. So we started a business with it, and Matt was an illustrator. Matt did design, things like that. So we do branding, we do video production, we do all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But this was kind of like, like I said, I'm a horror kid. I love this genre. This is like, I have way too many toys and movies like around my house and stuff. So this was like a passion project for me, and doing this with my business partner and doing this with Mary Joy, who works for us, this was like a cool thing that the whole team could create, make a product. Like instead of like our usual day-to-day where we're making all this cool stuff for our clients, this was like, hey, we can make this for us. We can market it. We can control the brand. We can control the messaging. We can control what the commercials look like for it and all that stuff, and really have a lot of fun and use all of our technical skills to produce this.
Yeah.
So that part of it was awesome. The business side of it is crazy. We ship everything. We pack everything. That's the whole thing. I always tell people, like, if you are, like MJ and Matt say it all the time too, 90% of the time, if you are messaging our Facebook, our Instagram, or our Twitter, you're probably talking to me. And it's just because we're a small team. And people always like think they're like, oh, you must have like a whole company and like 20 people. No, it's us. Yeah. And I think it's something where we're like at the point where we're like, yeah, we need to start bringing some people on because this is getting tiring. But it's also cool to just be able to, do this. And I had said it yesterday, I think on Twitter or something, but it's just like, there's nothing more rewarding than to have put something like this out that to a community that I've been a part of since I was a kid and I love, and like to see people like, tell you like, oh yeah, we love your games. We play your games all the time. We play with our kids, all this stuff. Like, that's awesome. Like that, that's my reward. Like, is to know that like I'm making people have fun with something that I just made because I wanted to see if I can make it. So.
Well, and what's fantastic about it too is it kind of gets my kids away from, because they've been home for so long, it's getting them away from the TV, away from the video games, and it's getting me away from social media, which that's great. I mean, I need more of that anyway. But and we're coming together and we're killing teenagers together. It's great. It's great. Every horror family needs this, And my wife is not a horror fan at all. Like at all. So it's almost like the cartoony aspect of it kind of sucks her in a little bit. She'll be, I'll do one round, and she'll play around and have a blast with it. So I bring up video games. My kids were just asking me yesterday. They go, they need to make a video game out of Mixtape Massacre, and I'm like, that's a whole other animal, kids.
Whole other bag. We've been wanting to do an app for forever for it because it's kind of cool to have like something handheld that you can then like do with the game and like keep track of your stuff on your app and stuff like that. But man, it's like I said, we have a board of like, we need to do this stuff. We need to do this stuff. And it's, trust me, that's on the board. Yeah. So many things are on the board. It's just getting to that level of having that free time. At the end of the day, like, it's crazy to think like we're doing the director's cut right now. It's on Kickstarter. It's doing really well. We're unlocking stretch goals. As soon as this is over, probably a month from when it's over, everything will be off the print, and we're back on our other game, Float,
Right. I
and
was gonna ask you about
trying to
Float.
get trying to get that finished up so it's ready for Kickstarter. Because I won't lie, the pandemic really like threw a wrench into like the production on that, because
Right.
part of anything with games is a big part is putting it on a table and having a bunch of people outside of your team play
Yeah.
it and observing.
Yeah.
And doing that over Zoom is not fun because I miss so much. So it's been a slow and steady progression with that game. But when it's finished, it's going to be one that it's going to be one that's near and dear to my heart, because my favorite subgenre is aquatic horror.
Oh, me too, man.
But
Yeah.
I think people are. It's gonna be cool because it's gonna be a totally different game, totally different world, totally different everything. But I think if you're a fan of anything we do, you're gonna love the art, you're gonna love the world, and it's gonna play a lot different, but it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Please tell me you have a Deep Star 6 reference in that game.
There's definitely some creatures in it.
So tell me a little bit about Float. Just kind of whet people's appetite for it. So aquatic horror. You had me at
Good
aquatic
word.
horror. I mean, I saw the poster or an ad for it or something, and I was like, "Where's this game, Freddie? Where's this game? Where's it at? Where's it at?" So what is the setup for Float?
So the concept. So I'll be dead honest. This game comes from the fact that I have a neurotic and irrational fear of the ocean. I had like a small incident when I was a kid involving a shark and stuff, and like since then I am like terrified. Not to mention I saw Jaws way too early, and
Yeah.
if you ever see a movie with me, any shark movie with me, my girlfriend and anyone else will testify, it's more fun to watch me watch that movie than it is to watch the movie, because I am so terrified when watching those movies. But I wanted to do something that involved the ocean. I think it's such a cool creature in itself. Like, it's this dark, mysterious thing that at first it's all fun and you're getting out there, and then all of a sudden you hit like water where you can't see your feet anymore. You can't see the bottom. And I love that idea of like, there's something underneath us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's alive. There's something underneath us. So that was kind of the start of the idea for Float, and the idea that you're trying to stay afloat. So the concept for the game was that Matt, MG, and I came up with this. And what it is it's you're on a yacht. There is a accident of some nature. You're not sure what the accident was, but there was an accident of some nature. Everyone is in lifeboats. Each player controls their lifeboat. You need to keep track of water and food and make sure you guys are staying nourished during the whole adventure. You need to last for 7 days. And every day there's an event that takes place that can cause certain things. And every day there is something lurking from below, and it changes throughout the game. It can be a little thing. It can be a very, very big thing. And what you're trying to do is get to land before you lose your whole team.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun, and it's cool because it's a little less comedic than Mixtape.
Right.
It's like there's definitely some moments where you're going to probably draw a card and you're going to like, come on, please, like. So that's kind of what we're excited about with it.
Nice.
Is get a little more in there with it.
Very nice. Well, I'll be tracking that thing as well, and my money will end up in your guys' pockets at some point. Oh man, well we're running out of time here, but I think that covers everything I wanted to talk about. So the Kickstarter. Today is St. Paddy's Day today, the 17th of March. When is the Kickstarter going until? What's the timeline of the Kickstarter? And then after that, of course, it'll be available through the website and everything. But how long can people kind of get in and get these? Because it's all about the getting in and getting the stretch goals, right?
Correct. Yeah, and the fact that some of the stretch goals and some of the things offered during the campaign won't be offered post-campaign. We try to do that to make it special for the people who are a part of the campaign. So we went live yesterday, March 16th. The campaign runs for 23 days. It's going to go until April 8th at 9:55 a.m. is when it stops. So you have until that morning. Um, we've currently just unlocked one stretch goal. We have about 5 left. Each one gets bigger and better. And they're all 3 of the 6 stretch goals are exclusive to backers, as well as a lot of the add-ons are exclusive to backers. So it's one of those things where if you've never done a Kickstarter before, this is one to get in on, because the nice thing about our Kickstarter is the fans have already funded it. So now it's just about getting all the bonus stuff. So as the numbers climb, and the reason we do stretch goals is it's not just to I think people think it's like the idea of making more money. This money is used for production. The idea of it is to make the best product. It's why you put your product on Kickstarters. You may have an idea, but then there's bigger things you can do with that idea by just achieving smaller goals. Right. So that's kind of the advantage of being a part of the Kickstarter. And of course, it's everything on the Kickstarter is marked down compared to what it'll be retail value. Like I think tons of people have done the producer's pack, which is like $100, but you're getting like $120 worth of stuff. So it's pretty cool. So yeah, I would highly suggest find our Kickstarter, Mixtape Massacre, the Director's Cut. There's tons of stuff you can get into and to get playing with us. And it will end on April 8th.
Awesome. Awesome. So the stretch goals, they're all kind of secret right now, right? Or have you...
Some of them are. Like 2 of them are these unique supply cards that kind of break the fourth wall. We know that people enjoy stuff where it kind of breaks the fourth wall, so we like to put those in there. There's a new character that no one knows about. There's new minis that for these characters that no one knows about. And then we also threw in there, because we know people love the dice. So we worked with our manufacturer, and if we can get there, we're going to have transparent blood red dice. So those will look really nice and really cool. And we'll add those extras to people's boxes.
Yeah. My favorite thing is that, I'm playing with pentagram dice. It's just like, what other game does that? It's almost like my childhood rebellion coming back, because I was, pentagrams were frowned upon when I was growing up.
Very much so. Well, and you think it's not just they were. We literally had a woman 2 months ago email me telling me, "Hey, I bought your game. I just opened it. There's pentagrams on these dice." And I was like, "Yes, ma'am." I was like, "If you look on the site, the game shows all the pieces inside. That's what the dice look like." She goes, I can't have this. She's like, "I'm gonna have to burn this." And I was like, "What?"
Burn it.
And I was like, "I'm sorry, ma'am." And apparently she burned our games. So I was like, all right. I was like, "This is incredible."
You can't pay for that kind of marketing, man.
You can't. I was like, "This is incredible." So our game has been burned. So that's something I can add to our achievements.
Amazing. I had a stint where I did have to burn some CDs and tapes at one point in my life. I don't know. The thing about physical media is you can buy it again.
Absolutely.
You don't defeat Satan by burning something with a pentagram on it. I don't know. Anyway, we can get a philosophical and religious discussion about Satan, and I can keep on going, but I won't do that to you, Freddie.
I'm good with it.
Let me look at my shirt.
Fantastic. Reading is fun.
Yeah, it is. Awesome. So yeah, everyone, make sure if you're interested. This sounds fun. Check it out. It's a blast. I love board games. I haven't played board games in a while, just because things that were just too complicated to try to learn and tell the kids, or even teach my wife how to do it or whatever. And this was a game that we popped it on the table, and then and learned it pretty quick. And then the great thing, what you guys do is you guys did those YouTube kind of instructionals of you guys playing for like an hour or so, hour and a half. And when I first got the game, I sat down and just had it. I was working and just had it playing. So I'm like working and learning how to play Mixtape Massacre, that's awesome that you guys do.
Well, and those videos are a lot of fun, because we just get to have some friends over and have fun like making fun of each other while we play the game. So that's always a blast.
Those are great. All right. I'm trying to think. I think I've covered everything. Yeah. So yeah. All right. I'm scatterbrained right now. Sorry, everybody.
No, you're fine.
Yeah. So I'm awful at wrapping up shows. If you've listened to this podcast, you will know that I'm awful at wrapping it up. But we'll just do it. So, Freddie Carlini, Mixtape Massacre. Follow him on the Twitters, the social medias. I'll put stuff in the show notes and the links and all that kind of stuff. And buy Mixtape Massacre, everybody. Please do it.
Come back to campaign.
Yes. All right. Freddie, thank you for joining me today. And all of you, thank you for watching and listening. We'll talk to all of you next time. On the next podcast, we are going to be discussing the Creep Show work print with a very special guest. So, yeah, you're going to want to listen to that or watch that.
Heck yeah.
We'll talk to all of you next time. Bye-bye.
Oh, don't tell me you're leaving. The party's just begun.